abusive of federal workers, and it is just plain wrong.
And it's random.
It's abusive.
It's random.
It's abusive.
Yes, I do. I do think that. I think the way that they are. Yeah, I think the way that they are treating them.
Why? How is this abusive?
Scott, have you ever gotten an email from someone that said, you better do this or else you're going to resign?
Yeah, it's called having a boss in the private sector.
From someone who's not your boss?
The White House is every federal worker's boss. That's number one.
Elon Musk is not anybody.
That's Republican Scott Jennings once again forced to sit at the intellectual children's table on CNN and speak common sense to a panel full of room temperature political hacks who think government workers receiving an email is some form of harassment. Welcome to Nerk News. I'm Nerkish, and it looks like President Trump and Elon Musk are once again upsetting establishment media lackeys who've been screaming at us for weeks about what hard workers government employees are and how their jobs actually aren't cushy at all. Well, it turns out that those same hard workers can't seem to manage to reply to a simple email asking what they did last week. Here's Scott Jennings ruthlessly mocking legacy media elites for freaking out over something people in the private sector have been doing for years.
Scott, how is Elon going to evaluate? I mean, how is he going to evaluate the work of thousands of federal employees when he has no idea what they do?
He's not. The test was, are you even paying attention to your email? Are you even at your terminal?
Some federal workers, he sent it on a weekend. Some federal workers do not have access to their emails on the weekends. They just don't.
Did they go to work today? I mean, look, the amount of outrage, melting down, and sort of outpouring of emotion over this ought to tell you everything you need to know. We had a lady on CNN today, a supposed federal worker, who said she was infuriated by getting this email. She had time to go on CNN, but she didn't have time to send a 30-second email saying, well, here's what I was working on last week. This is what people in the private sector have come to hate about how they view the public sector. And I think there's a great many very dedicated public servants. But you said, it's about control. Yes, it's about control, and it's about finding out who is actually at their job working and who isn't, and do we need all these people?
I want to dispel this myth that federal employees are some lazy, bureaucrats that don't show up for their work. Listen, 85% of federal workers work outside of Washington, D.C. Those are people who work at our national parks. Those are people who work on, the ag departments in farm bureau states. Those are people who are taking care of Medicaid and processing payments for people in red states like where Donald Trump lives. So we need to stop being so cavalier, Scott, about people and whether they're working or not and how come they're so upset about getting an email. Because these are people's livelihoods.
Because some are being cavalier.
You have the privilege of sitting here getting a six-figure paycheck from CNN.
And I have to show up every day. And I have to show up and earn it. And I have to show up and earn it.
As public servants, and they do the same.
And I have to show up.
And the fact that you assume that they don't is obnoxious and insulting to those people.
They're not showing up and earning it?
They're good public servants.
Hold on.
Why are you assuming that they are?
Hang on.
It really is amazing how establishment media is always trying to gaslight people about things that have been in our collective consciousness forever. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when everyone knew that the public sector is wasteful and inefficient, and one of the benefits of getting a position there is job security. Sure, we might squabble about the degree to which that's true, but the general consensus was always there. And if you don't believe me, just ask anyone who's had to work in state or federal government or has known anyone who has. It's an absolute fact. Yet CNN feels the need to defend their masters and trot out these workers thinking that the average American will somehow be sympathetic to them.
First, just tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m., and I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination. This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce, which is part of his broader plan to gut the federal workforce and privatize public sector services to ensure that corporations like his own can get more profit. And that makes me really angry, and my coworkers as well.
We're talking about 5 bullet points here. They're going on national television to complain about sending an email with 5 bullet points. Now, the 48-hour requirement to reply has been loosened, but the fact of the matter with all of this is that the federal workforce, which includes millions of people, has operated like some sort of untouchable fiefdom, insulating these people and making them unaccountable to the public which they're supposed to serve. This email wasn't about micromanaging or loyalty oaths, it was about accountability. In the private sector where efficiency and results matter, employees are routinely asked to justify their work. Why should government be any different? I mean, what did these people think Trump meant when he said he wanted to shatter the deep state?
And jeopardize continuity of government.
And there are many federal employees that are civil servants, meaning that they don't come in because of partisan politics. That's there to protect you as a conservative and Tara as a liberal.
I'm sorry, I think
it's there to protect both of you.
I hear your debating point. I think it is incredibly naive to believe that there are not civil service bureaucrats who would love nothing more than to thwart this president for 4 years and wait for a Democrat.
Then why are Republican senators worried about it also then? They're not liberals.
I'll tell you why. Because there's almost 1 million federal workers in red states. You know, you think that the people working at the border have a bias pro-Democrats? You think people working for USDA in Miami have a bias for Democrats?
Answer the email. Answer the email.
All right.
And let malign actors, you know, and national security arrest.
It's not the president.
You know, I'm willing to bet that the majority of people, particularly those in the DC area, are not working in civil service as some sort of selfless contribution to society, and they sure as heck aren't apolitical either. I mean, Jennings is absolutely right here. For crying out loud, the TV screens at the Department of Housing and Urban Development headquarters were playing an AI video of Trump kissing Elon's feet. And sure, those are probably the actions of a small group of people, but they certainly don't seem like the motives of selfless, nonpartisan workers, and embolden Trump's case for draining the swamp. But let me know what you think. Is the email sent by Doge too harsh on federal employees? How much should we really care about all this? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel. That stuff really does help us out. Until then, this has been Nerk News. Thanks for watching. Bye!